Hello and welcome to the New Indian Express Online. I'm Bansy Kalappa. With me is a well-known business consultant and someone who's a chartered accountant, someone who's authored 28 books on taxes. We have with us Mr. Sanjay Dhariwal.
Welcome, Bansy. How are you?
So, I'm doing well, thank you. So, first of all, let me start with the government trying to make direct taxes a little more palatable. In fact, the finance minister has said no tax for 0 to 3 lakh per annum. So do you think it makes sense?
If you ask me, frankly, it would have made sense if they said there's no tax from 0 to 6 lakhs. The cost of recovery of tax, the cost of processing and maintaining those records are very high. But when you see from the government's point of view, you have hardly got around 7 odd crore people who file their returns on a regular basis. So if out of 140 crores of our population.
Okay.
So if 7 crores only are paying the taxes, that means to say that roughly around 4 to 5% of the people are paying the taxes for the whole country. So this is something which they would not like to reduce the rates, because if they go on further, there is going to be another complications where people paying, getting 10 lakhs income also would not be there.
All right.
Now taking the other side of it, you could also say that even a peon in the central government or the state government employee gets around 3 lakh rupees. You're bringing him also to the tax net.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And he has to pay 5% tax.
About 3 lakhs, yes, he'll have to pay the 5% tax. That's all fair because it's a TDS deducted and all that stuff. But the challenge comes is that he has to file his returns. If he fails to file his returns, there are penal provisions of 5,000 and 10,000. And that could be very huge for a small man because he doesn't know to file the returns, and then he has to pay his chartered accountants the fee. So this is going to be one challenge. The second challenge is that this revenues which we are talking about, the slabs which they have come out, is something which is very cumbersome. You have a 0, you have a 5, you have a 10, you have a 15, you have a 20, and then you have a 30. And then you have the capital gains, which is again at 12.5, and then again
I'll come to the capital gains tax. In fact, the capital gains tax has driven the market down more than anything else today, because we saw the market briefly look very inspired with the budget, and it went up a few points. But then even as the finance minister started reading the details of the budget, the market tanked almost 900 plus points at one time.
Okay.
So when you look at this, what do you think? Do you think there's a future in the market? How do you see the markets reacting tomorrow and the day after? What happens next?
From this budget perspective, what they have done is that the long-term capital gains, which was at 10%, they made it at 12.5% as far as stock markets are concerned. The short-term capital gains, which was 15%, has been now become 20%. So this is going to be a hit to the people who are making profits. But if you see the way the markets are today, it's at 24,500 plus on the NSE basis. So it has already gone very high when you see from the COVID times. In the month of, I would say, is the March of 2020, and then now you look at it, the markets have gone up very high. So the capital gains which are there are effective from today's date. So that is one point that we'll have to understand, is that only if you make a profit there is a tax impact. But sentimentally, if you look into it, there is something called as an STT. That is a securities transaction tax. When this was originally introduced in the law, they said that it is in compensation of the long-term capital gain, so there will be a securities transaction tax and there won't be any income tax. The market tanked not because of the 12.5%, it is tanked also because of the fact that the STT continues. They increase the STT on the futures and options, and in addition to that they have asked for a 12.5%, that is a 25% increase in the long-term capital gains. Now in terms of other assets, it used to be on a long-term basis, it used to be around 20% rate of tax. Now this has been brought down to 12.5%. So you would say that there is a savings of 7.5% which is happening on other categories of asset. But principally, if you look into this particular matter, you'll have to also understand that earlier they had an indexation, and after indexation they were paying a 20% tax. Now they would not be eligible for an indexation. So if I have been holding a property for 18 years, I would have got an indexation of roughly around 100% on the terms of my cost price. Now that is gone, and I end up paying a huge capital gains because I don't have the indexation on that particular issue. So this is something which is going to hit hard.
Okay. Also, fiscal deficit. How do you look at the fiscal deficit? Because the government has been desperately trying to plug this one area. So how do you look at the fiscal deficit?
The fiscal deficit is one area where the government has really done good hard work, especially after COVID and spending so much on the social activities and the social securities, etc. It was supposed to be beyond 5% even in this year, but they have brought it down to 4.9%, I think so. So that's a fairly good thing. But you should also see that this is also compensated by the dividend they got. And this is something that you'll have to look into it more seriously. They got a dividend from the RBI of more than 2 lakh crores. And that is one of the reasons why the fiscal deficit is down. If the dividend wouldn't have come, then there could have been an issue over here. So we have to look into this particular aspect to say that next year would RBI be able to give them the same dividends, and if they are not able to do it, whether they'll be able to maintain it at the 4.9%.
Okay. Now also you spoke of those who don't file their tax returns. There is a liability there.
Yeah, there's a penal provision.
All right. So today the finance minister has spoken of decriminalizing TDS non-compliance. So is that really going to help? Because they have to pay a fine, because many of them may not even be filing returns. Many of them may not have filed tax returns all their life, but suddenly they become compliant now.
Now, when he talks about the TDS non-compliances and then not leaving a prosecution for them also, you should understand that supposing you are my employer, employing 10,000 people, and I am an employee of that particular thing, if you do not file your TDS returns, you are exempted from the prosecution, though there is an interest and penalty. I as an individual cannot file my returns because in my 26 years I don't get my credit of it. Once I don't get the credit, I can't file the returns, I end up paying a penalty for a fault of yours. I think there has to be certain checks and balances to say that if my employer, if the person who's deducted the taxes, who's eligible to deduct the taxes, he's an agent of the government of India. So he should actually comply with the law. If he's not complying, why I as an individual should be liable for penalties for it? Okay.
So in fact, there's one other area that is income tax. They've spoken of getting a relief of 17,500 crore, 17,500 rupees. Each person gets that relief from income tax. So can you explain that bit?
See, if you ask me frankly, these are all playing to the masses. You talk about 17,500, you talk about the standard deduction from 50,000 to 75,000, that at least is reasonable enough to say that there's a 50% hike over there. But if you are talking about the cost of living index, or you're talking about the inflation concept, what was the value of 2 lakh rupees around 10 years back and what is the value of 2 lakh rupees today? Is it really equivalent only to 3 lakhs? Is something that we'll have to look into it. So what we are talking about 17,500, and if you're talking about pittance, then you also had a scheme where up to 5 lakhs you are not liable to file any returns or pay any taxes. So now you are going to pay taxes even above 3 lakhs. So you are trying to get more people into the ambit, and it is the same government which is doing this.
Absolutely.
So you don't understand that what is the consistency. We are talking one on ease of doing business. On the other hand, we have multiple rate of taxes. On the other hand, we are changing our policies, and flip-flapping on our policies itself is a total wrong dimension which we are going to the economy.
So thank you. All these issues what we spoke about are going to have repercussions. This is the same government that presented the full budget, in February, and here they are presenting the full budget. So of course there are issues that have been revised in both these budgets, how they will impact us in the coming days, because at the end of it, the budget is just an annual statement of income and expenditure with minor tinkering. How will all this affect us remains to be seen. With camera person Alan, this is Bansy for the New Indian Express Online.
Thank you.